All right, let us get started. Welcome everybody to our inaugural mental health coping strategies session, where we are going to take a look at this very unique holiday season. I think for many of us, the holidays are a time full of all different emotions. Um, Often in the same hour, same half an hour, we can feel joy and excitement and gratitude and stress and anxiety and dread and frustration. So it's just a really highly charged time for everybody normally. And then this year has been extraordinary in its curveballs and in what we're going to do to kind of make this year even kind of another layer of potential challenges, or maybe for some people relief, right? So we're going to take a look at all of that today, and hopefully you'll leave with some coping strategies that can help you reduce some of your stress during this time. Jadon, will you switch? Oh, and let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Jana Cantor. I'm the Learning and Development Manager at Community Health Center Network. And one of the responsibilities of my job is to work for the Alameda County Care Connect, which is a whole person project that looks at whole person care through the lens of a number of sectors, which I'm sure many of you all are part of. And I work on the skills development unit with Jadon and a few others from the Pacific AIDS Education Training Center. And we develop trainings and workshops for the service providers for people who serve the clients of the Alameda County Care Connect. So I'll pass it over to John to quickly introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jadon Wright, and I am the Deputy Director at the Pacific AIDS Education Training Center, and very excited about today's everyday mental health session. I know I could use and have been checking in with myself a little more often during all of this COVID-19 time and figuring out some things. And we're happy to be able to share some activities and ways of thinking about this with you all today. So with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Jana to get us started.
Thank you. So we have a few group agreements because we will be doing a number of individual solo activities and then also group activities where you're going to have the time to reflect and brainstorm and share. And so the few things that we kind of lay out for all of our trainings are to be open to other perspectives, to pay attention. One of a quote that I love by Stephen Covey, who wrote the 7 Habits for Highly Successful People, is that most people listen with the intent to respond rather than actually to understand. And so just kind of being in that space of just being curious. There are many different holiday traditions, and a lot of us come from many different backgrounds, just being in an open, curious space to learn more. Again, what is said in here stays in this conversation, and we find that our workshops are really only as successful as the participation that that happens. So if you can, just kind of be present and participate, especially when you go in groups, because that's when you'll be meeting with some other people and people want to know what's going on. Is there anything else that we missed or you'd like to include for a group agreement that we can start off the workshop with today? All right. If anything comes up, just feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat box. Generosity. Alicia, if you don't mind maybe just talking a little bit more about generosity. I have my own kind of perception about that, but I'm curious to know what you mean about generosity. And again, feel free to unmute yourself or type it in the chat box.
Yeah, no problem. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. No, by generosity, I just mean like if someone says something, just being super generous and like not jumping to conclusions about what they mean, I guess, is what I want to say just by being generous. Does that make sense?
Sure does. There's we humans love to judge, and so it almost sounds like kind of refraining from some of that judgment. Yeah, great, thank you. All right, Jadon, will you flip us to the next slide? Okay, So one of our hopes for this session is for you all to get an idea of things that you can do with your families, whether they're your chosen families or your blood families and your loved ones during this time. Because for many of us, we're going to have really different holiday celebrations this year. And so what can we do to do our best to make the best out of for what we have? And so we're going to play a game. We're going to play a bingo game. And I don't know if you all remember, but one of my favorite icebreakers that I used to play when we used to gather in person would be to get to know the people in the room through kind of a human bingo game where you're given all these different boxes and you find people who either do the hobbies or have the interests or, do all these things that are in those boxes. And so we're going to play this game now. How this is going to go down is that each of you is going to have one of these bingo cards. Yadiel just put the link to the bingo card in the chat box. So if you can all scroll over to the chat box and click the link that Yadiel just sent, this will take you to the bingo game. And then we're going to break you up into small rooms for 3 different rounds. And each round will be 2 minutes long. And in those 2 minutes, you're just going to start asking your fellow participant peers if they kind of do or believe or whatever in any of these boxes. And whether you just keep a mental note of who does what, or right now you can quickly grab a piece of paper and just draw a 4x4 box and just put X marks on those boxes, however you want to do this. Really, the purpose is to get to know each other and to maybe pick up something that you could do with your families. What's cool about this particular bingo thing that we linked to you is that you can design it. So we created all of the content that's in those boxes. So you can make something and design something for your families or your friends that's unique to that group of people as well. So in just a moment, we're going to put you into those rooms. And as I said, every 2 minutes, we're going to switch you out and you'll have 3 rounds and you don't have to do anything other than just hit join breakout room and get to asking each other about each other through these prompts. Any questions here about how we're going to play this game or about the next about 10 minutes or so? Well, welcome back, everybody. Hope that was as fun as it was. I know that in each group I was in, there was lots of laughter. I hope that your groups also had that. So again, just these are some ideas that you can be taking with your family. You can make new bingo cards and make them relevant to the people that you spend time with. And there's lots of fun ways to break people in rooms, especially those of you who have really big people in your family or selected family. And yeah, I'm going to leave it over to Jadon, who's going to kind of take it to kind of get into some more of the strategies part of this.
Yeah, and before we get into that, who knows what a Kinara is? Did anybody get that filled in?
I do now, but I didn't.
You can tell us, Catherine. What is a Kinara?
So, from my understanding, big picture, small, it's like a candle holder that they use like in Kwanzaa, and it kind of has like the Kwanzaa decor, it's revolved around the Kwanzaa, and it's like a candle holder. So please add.
You are right, Kathy. You are right, Kathy. It is the candle holder for the candles of Kwanzaa.
Yes. So we're going to talk a little bit more about all the winter celebrations. We thought we wanted to really highlight all the different ways that people are celebrating over the next few months, and just to share some different traditions that we might think about looking into, celebrating, if our friends are celebrating, that you kind of have a little bit of background. So in your resources packet, there's more information. But I also wanted to invite you all in the chat box to type any holiday traditions that you'll be celebrating this holiday season. So they could be religious or secular, from this country or from another. Feel free just to use the chat box to type in some holiday traditions. So this picture is actually from Diwali, which just happened a couple of days ago, I think, on the 13th. But these are some of the holiday traditions that are noted in the document I looked at. And I think it's just important to recognize how many different holidays there really are. And I always say the more the merrier. I think that people experience holidays in many different ways, and we're going to get into that more in just a minute. But also that, just the act of celebrating together is such a self-care activity. And that sometimes we think of self-care as individual, but a lot of times when we're celebrating with others, with our families, with our chosen families, with our friends, that we really have the opportunity to re-energize and get that spirit of the holiday that we're celebrating. Sometimes, especially with religious holidays, it renews our connection to a higher power. All of those kinds of things are really important for us as human beings in our spirit, especially when we're feeling a little down. And I think that's why we have so many winter holidays, because it's the time of darkness and snow and cold in a lot of places. And so these are some of the winter solstice holidays, which are celebrated in different countries and traditions around the world. And I just thought this was cool that, so many different traditions actually celebrate December 21st, which is the winter solstice this year. So just thoughts of how we can adopt some of the things and look at some other traditions that we may not have been aware of. And I'm going to check in the chat box to see if anybody else has shared some holiday traditions with us. Great. So it looks like, in St. Lucia, the Italian holiday where my family is from, December 12th, or I'm sorry, December 10th. Awesome. Homemade cinnamon rolls and bacon on Christmas morning and matching PJs at my house. That's awesome. I love that. Loving these traditions. Yes. Thanks. Jana. Yeah, anything that fills up the soul. Christmas ornament decorating. That sounds super fun. And something that we can still do this holiday season. We'll still be cooking dinner and giving thanks for our families and reaching out to those that we can't be with this year. Well, great. So we'll have some ideas for you on how you might do that. Building a gingerbread house, that sounds super fun. And I think a holiday tradition or ritual can be anything that you do together with other people. So thank you for sharing all of those with us. So moving forward in our presentation, I want you to think about, really think about one of those traditions that you hold really valuable to you and using all of your senses. So I'm going to say, describe in detail your holiday rituals. So let's see. You're going to do this for about 2 minutes on your own and just think about, what does your tradition smell like? What does it look like? What does it taste like? I know it tastes good for some of y'all. What colors are represented? Who are the people? What are the different feelings that come up for you? And describe it in as much as detail, and think about it in your mind as much as possible. And we're going to give you about 2 minutes to do that. Great. That's about 2 minutes, y'all. Hope you had some time, either in the chat or you can unmute yourself out loud. And just anybody want to share with us what their holiday tradition or ritual is?
Good morning. This is Laura. My family has a new holiday tradition centered around Christmas Eve, and we have a Christmas white elephant exchange amongst our family members. And we started with the first letter of Christmas, so we've like a $25 gift that starts with a C, and gender neutral, preferably. And that's gone over. There's a lot of fun, laughter, and interaction.
Awesome. That sounds super fun. In my family, we do a white elephant gift exchange as well. And you can bring things that are used. So there's a certain used singing fish called Billy Bass that comes back every year. As part of the tradition. Anybody else want to share their traditions?
Hello, I can go. So my family is Italian, but I grew up for the most part in the States, and so we have kind of a mixture of like keeping with our Italian traditions. And so for me, it starts on Christmas Eve with midnight mass because we're Catholic. So it's very like dressed up, also very like quiet and solemn and peaceful. And then Christmas morning, we have a tree and presents, which in Italy, it might be different now, but you don't really exchange gifts on Christmas. It's more about like family and cooking and church and stuff like that. But I really appreciate that we've adopted that American tradition of exchanging gifts on Christmas morning. And then again, we will have a traditional Italian Christmas dinner, which consists of pasticcio, which is what we call lasagna, and some other stuff that's really, it would be long to explain. So I'll spare you those details. And then my favorite thing is Italian desserts. All of and I know the stores they become full of them during the holiday season. So I'm really looking forward to those. We always have a pandoro, which is like, it's like a panettone, but it's like 100 times better. And we have it specifically from where my family is from in Verona. So always look forward to that with champagne. And it's just really nice how we've mixed like Italian and American traditions together. So.
Thank you so much for sharing. I can just see you lighting up as you're explaining to us the joy that you get from your holiday traditions. And I think that's the essence and the spirit of why we celebrate together and break bread together and eat lasagna together, because it just brings us so much happiness. We have time for one more tradition if somebody else wants to share.
I'd like to share, Catherine.
Go ahead, Kathy.
So, my beloved holiday smells like pine cones. It looks like a lot of different colors. It sounds full of joy. It tastes like sweet potato pie. It feels like love all around.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think just as you were saying, describing the love, I think that's really the radiance that we're trying to evoke during this holiday season. And also to just be together. And so during this time, this year in 2020, when there are some restrictions and health guidelines and things that are happening that may make us make different choices this year, we wanted to start to talk about some of that with you, so that you can start to prepare and think about what might be different for this holiday season. So we're going to talk a little bit first about some of the holiday triggers and stress that can come up during the holidays. And I don't know if any of you have felt these kinds of things, but some of the things that can come up are outside of our control. So even just going shopping, to go shopping, to stay at home and shop, that whole decision-making process can be a little bit stressful. There can be certain people in your life that make the holidays a little stressful. In my family, there's certain aunties that don't get along. There's an uncle who hasn't talked to the family in 10 years and then came back. There's all those kinds of issues that come up that can make the holidays a little stressful. Also, the places that you want to go, we have some restrictions in terms of travel. Folks are really advising us in public health not to travel outside of the Bay Area this holiday season. So if your family's not in the Bay, if they're in Italy, what are you going to do this year? How are you going to make a holiday that you can still enjoy and still feel that love? And then we have all of our COVID-19. There's political uncertainty. There's just a lot of stressors and things that are outside of our control. So these are things, triggers that could be outside. Then we also want to talk about internal triggers and stressors. And these are things that come from within our own thoughts, feelings, mood, also mental health issues that we might be dealing with that come up during the holidays. And I think also, some of the addictions and things that we might be dealing with on our own that can make the holidays hard for us to be with others and to enjoy in the same way. So we would be remiss if we didn't mention some of these things, but some of the feelings that surround that can be hard to deal with because they're dealing with you and how you internally are feeling about the holidays. And sometimes that can be difficult to share with people when they're so in the love and the joy of the holidays, finding that space and that person. Sorry, there's something going on with my eye. Finding that space and that person who can help you talk through that can be hard. So I just want to give you all another minute or two to think about on your own what are some of the things that are triggers for you during the holidays? What are the stressors? So I'm going to give you another couple minutes on your own to think about what those stressors are and to use your senses again. I think Kathy did a beautiful job of showing us how we can think about all of the different parts of our senses that come up. But for those stressors, there's and that trauma memory, there are those things as well. So not that we want to go bring you back there, but to really think about what are some of the stressors, what are some of the triggers, what are some of your concerns for this holiday season? And I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that.
Were we put in different rooms? I wasn't put in a room. Oh, you're muted.
You're not going to go to a different room yet. We're just all going to be together. You're just doing this on your own.
Okay, all right, sorry.
No worries. Good question. So it's been a couple minutes. And I'd like to invite you to share in this larger group anything that you would like to share that might be stressful or triggering for you that you're thinking about.
Worried about the turkey coming out too dry.
Yeah, the meal being just right. I know I cooked my first Thanksgiving dinner last year and I was stressed for 16 people. It was hard, but I made it through. What else? Yes, Kathy.
Okay, so I kind of did it the same way. It is stressful. The number one thing, it is stressful to hear that my youngest son contracted the COVID-19 and not feeling well.
Yeah.
And it's also stressful not to be able to touch him, to hug him, and hold him when I know he's feeling bad. It's also stressful not to be able to eat my other family's foods, their specialties. It is also very stressful not to be able to see my children this time of the year because of COVID. It is also stressful for me not to be able to be in the place of worship as we are used to at this time of the year.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And sorry to hear about your son. Um, Sounds really stressful. And I know that
Thank you.
you, I know that we are all have our stories of folks that we know who contracted COVID, and that's going to be a really hard thing for us to deal with this year. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to share some of the things they're thinking about?
I think with this particular holiday season, it's the isolation for sure. My family is already spread out all over the place. On my dad's side, most of my family on my dad's side are in Canada and Florida and New York. So not being able to travel this holiday season is definitely I think. And then on my mom's side, everybody's in Italy. So yeah, just the isolation.
Yeah, I think that's something that we're all going to have different ups and downs about, and how we cope and deal with that. Would anybody else who hasn't spoken, I want to invite those who haven't had a chance to talk yet into the space. And if you want to share something that you're thinking about, it's maybe stressful or triggering to you during the holidays. All right. If we don't have anybody else who wants to share, then we'll move into the next part of this activity, which is where we're going to look at the holiday coping with holiday stress worksheet. So there's some ways that we cope during the holidays. It's not all stressful, and even if we have stressors, there's things that we do to help ourselves feel better, to be healthy during the holidays, and to acknowledge what's going on with us. So I think Yadiel, if you could add the link to the holiday stress worksheet to the chat box. And
It will be a Word document. So to be downloaded as a Word document that you all can type on.
Yes. Thank you, Jana. So you're going to download, the link is going to appear in the chat, just like earlier. And then when you click on that link, it will download to your own computer and you can type directly into that Word document. So we're going to break you into, or actually, why don't we stay together for the solo part? So we're going to give about 4 or 5 minutes for you to think about, what are some action plans that you can take during this holiday season. And I'm going to share some of the ones that you may want to look at from the worksheet. There's 9 different areas to consider that many people feel stressed about. during the holidays. So they've kind of created this sheet that can really help you think about what are your plans? What would you do to prepare maybe 4 weeks out, 2 weeks out in the moment? And then if you didn't prepare, right? Like I know for me, always the holiday overeating. I was talking to somebody earlier in a group about how much I like to have multiple meals during the holidays, which is not always good for me. So, if I do get into that, how do I recover from that? How do I then the next day say, all right, we're going to start a new tradition of the after holiday walk? That's one of the things that my family started a couple years ago is after we eat, maybe an hour or two later, we go on the walk. And I grew up on a small island, so we can walk all the way around, and it's 3 miles, and that's a pretty good time, chit-chatting, still enjoying ourselves, but getting some healthy exercise in. So just thinking about how you can both have your moment to acknowledge some of the stressors and the triggers that you may be falling into this holiday season, but also what are some of your coping mechanisms and good things you want to put in place. So we're going to have 4 or 5 minutes on your own. And again, we're going to stay in the larger group for that. Then we're going to break you into smaller groups where you can describe some of your action plans around that. And to help brainstorm, maybe you can't think of an action plan because it's something that really is difficult for you. Maybe somebody else has a suggestion that they might be able to share with you. So some of the areas that that are on the sheet that you might want to look at is number one is letting go of unrealistic expectations. So that perfect turkey, if it always eludes you, maybe you can let that go this holiday season and just let it be what it is. Or maybe somebody else will cook that part of the meal. There are many ways to cope and think about it. So what are the unrealistic expectations that you may be holding up from childhood or from the past that, you just can't recreate this year in 2020 for a lot of different reasons. And then number two, you may want to look at is acknowledge and express your feelings honestly. So I think sometimes we push down our feelings, especially around the holidays, and thinking about, if you've had a loss, if somebody's gotten sick in your family, if there's been death or, the anxiety that comes up for you. It's figuring out your plan around that and thinking about how you're going to approach that this holiday season. So you'll have an opportunity to think about that on your own and then brainstorm with your group. I have 4 suggestions, a couple more. One is, the other one is number 6, preparing for the extra intensity. I think especially this year, this one spoke to me because I think, I'm not sure what's going to happen. And sometimes that makes me even more stressed. Is like, I can't prepare for the unknown. So thinking about what can I eliminate? What am I going to abandon? What do I not need to get into just to help make sure that the intensity in which I want to operate is right level set for this year and all that's going on. So thinking about what you might want to think about this year. And then number 8, I think is always something that I'm thinking about, and hopefully you all want to think about that too, is beware of overindulgence. So I talked a little about that earlier with food and overeating, but also money. One of the things that sometimes, especially if you're not able to see the people you love, sometimes you want to buy extra gifts for the people you love when you may not be able to have that in your budget. So think about what are some of the boundaries you want to put about gifts and spending this holiday season, but also feeling like you have enough and treating yourself. So thinking about that balance and what it is for you this holiday season. And that's the same for physical activity. We get busier during this time. We have more Zoom meetings, more stuff on our plate. So how do you want to build that in, and what do you want to commit to for yourself? So this sheet have folks had a chance to click on the sheet in the chat box? I see Catherine has. Can't see other people. Yes. If you want to use at the bottom, there's this the reactions. If you want to use those to help let us know what's going on, that's really helpful. But I'll assume by now that you guys have downloaded those sheets. And again, we're going to give you a few minutes to really think about on your own what are some of those triggers and start to think about what that plan is. And there's prompting questions within that sheet for you to work from. You guys have had a few minutes to work on your own. I'm gonna ask Adiel to now break you up into rooms with 3 people in them. And in those rooms, you can briefly describe what your trigger is and then how you're starting to think about your action plan. And if anybody has anything to contribute and you're open to that, that would be excellent as well. And then we'll come back together as a large group and share.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back.
Somebody's going to Florida? Shh, don't tell anybody.
Well, that we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a few minutes. It's like we all have to make our decisions about risk and what we're willing to do for ourselves. But just to bring us back to finishing out this and talking about thinking about ways that we can cope, was there anything that was helpful for folks about the worksheet or what was challenging? And again, I just invite you all to unmute yourselves. We're a pretty small group, so feel free to unmute yourselves and to chime right in.
Sometimes it's great to just have the list there available and to start the juices going on how to anticipate the stress and then problem solve it through it. I mean, I'm just not going to not make a turkey. It's going to happen. And and all the things that go with it, right? It's just what I'm going to do. But yeah, maybe just lowering that expectations, and like I was telling Shelly, I would maybe making a little extra gravy, so if it gets dry, it's got gravy on the side.
Exactly. This is going to be your year, Rebecca. I feel it. You're going to attend that right this time. It's going to come out perfect. Whatever that means to you.
In all honesty, I've had it perfected for each house I've lived in, but this is a new house. So it's a new oven, new everything. I mean, I have all the recipes on a spreadsheet with the checklist on make everything's there. I mean, I take the week off Thanksgiving to plan. No, it's a big thing in my house. We cannot have bad turkey.
Exactly. And I really liked what you said about the list. I think for me, sometimes too, writing everything down gets overwhelming. But if I have the questions there and I can just think about it, that's really, really helpful. Would anybody else like to share? And also just to bring in the last question, because we only have a few minutes before we move on to our next topic, but how might you think about utilizing this with your clients or other coworkers or friends? Might this be a useful list to share around, especially this holiday season? Anybody thinking about that? And feel free to respond in the chat as well if you don't feel like unmuting or you don't have the ability to do that right now.
I found the worksheet helpful in acknowledging the change this year that will occur and the feelings around it. And there is sadness of not being able to gather with the large family or see friends. And then the end of the worksheet where it says what's most important, and it's to show love and through words, kind words, loving words, and deeds. If able to do the deeds, but at least kind words.
Absolutely. You know, I think that's so important for us to remember. There are lots of ways to show love. It may not be what we've done in the past, but there are lots of ways. I had a couple of months ago, someone in our friend group just delivered us all like a little, maybe I'm telling you all too much, but a little shot, one of those like airport hotel shots, some homemade, like 3 or 4 homemade cookies, and like a little card that was just written on it, "We love and miss you." And that was so, and she went around and like delivered it to like the 9 or 10 people that are in our friend group around the Bay Area. And it was just so sweet and such a nice way of saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. I love you and I miss you. And I think that new tradition that she started, I'm going to pick up in the holidays and deliver around to our friends a little something. So just something to think about is these worksheets can be helpful and help you think through that process and what you're interested in doing this holiday season to help yourself cope and to help others cope around you. And we have a couple of chats. I've spoken so much. Oh, I'd like to let somebody else go. Thanks. But this could be great for clients and families. Yeah, and a little can be so much. Thank you, Catherine. And this is what we all need. I think that's really true. And Janice said, we are enjoying hearing from you, Catherine. Yes. And please, we appreciate your thoughtfulness and we invite you to share more. So we invite you all to share, especially as we move into our next section. And I'm going to turn it over to Jana to lead us through that.
Yeah, so this is a time for us to share some ideas, and we really do hope that you unmute yourselves or type in some chat box, some solutions here, because we're about to present a few scenarios that we all may come up against during this holiday time. And as I said earlier, this is a extraordinarily unique time for all of us. We've never had, at least in this country, in the times that most of us have been alive, we haven't had to think about the holidays in terms of how to keep ourselves safe from this really deadly disease. And we are hearing information from the government, from social media about what to do. And we want to, there's a lot of information. We send a resource packet that we'll send again at the end that has information from the CDC, from the Mayo Clinic, to give you some really specific safety precautions. And we also know that people are going to do what people do, and a harm reduction approach that acknowledges that people are going to kind of take their own risks and act from that place is important for us. And we want to talk about that here. So Jadon, would you slide onto the next slide? So we have 2 different scenarios that we think we may come up against. And we'd love to kind of have a little brainstorm session for how to deal with them. So the first thing is you're inviting your family over for a holiday lunch, and one of your family members is really pushing to have masks off when you eat indoors. You know, perhaps they're saying, oh, we have our little pod, we don't see anybody, we're not going out, it's safe. It's, you know, who knows what reasons that this person's giving, but they're really kind of pushing back against the request to wear masks inside. What do you do? What do you do in this case? When someone's really kind of pushing against your request to wear masks indoors. Catherine, I saw you unmute yourself.
Yes. At this point in time, in life as it is now, if I had any gathering or even anyone coming over that's refusing to wear a mask, I would simply let them know you may feel you're okay, and that's fine. It's your prerogative, and that's how you feel, and you are entitled to your opinion, thoughts, and feelings. But for me, I am a high risk. So if you care about me or anyone else that may be high risk for whatever reason, could you please wear the mask? And if they say no, then I'm like, well, I'm sorry, we can't take the chance of you being here if you can't wear the mask. That's straightforward. That just is what it is.
Thank you.
I even have them wear gloves sometimes, depending on circumstances too and where they come from.
Rebecca?
Yeah, I set the expectations months in advance for people who are planning to come. I mean, Alameda County was in doing really well for a long time, so we had made plans months ago for Thanksgiving and set the expectation that people are going to have to quarantine 2 weeks before. They're going to have to limit their exposure. We had some people who just said that they couldn't come because they weren't willing to do that, and we acknowledged them and we told them how much we appreciated them. But because of this time, and there are people in my family, me being one of them, is also high risk. So Catherine, I can relate to that. And I just told them, look, I'd feel horrible if someone came to my home and got sick and worse, ended at the hospital and passed away. And I just really guilted them and letting them know that this is the expectation. If you can't make it, we understand, no judgment. You know, we all can't do this. And for those that try to push the envelope, you know, I was very lucky that my daughter-in-law and my son were very supportive, and they just said, look, these are the rules. You cannot come. You cannot come. And it's looking to be really good. Everyone's been doing what we've asked them to do.
A lot of really clear expectations, explanations why, and then just saying if you can't follow them, that's cool. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to disown you. I love you very much, and we'll see you when we see you. Let's talk on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Any other ideas before I move into the next scenario? Okay, and feel free if things come up later on to share them as well. Okay, so this is one that can happen, that you do everything as planned, you follow the directions, you're only keeping it to like your closest people, you plan for it to be outside, you wake up Thursday morning, and it's rainy and cold and miserable. What do you do? What do you do when you follow all the plans, all the guidelines, and things just go a little bit differently? What would you do here? And feel free to think about, you know, maybe this happened to you already in the summer or at other times during the past 9 months when you've kind of done all you could, and then something kind of throws you a curveball and you can't follow through with that.
Well, looks like it's me again, you guys. I agree with who was that? Maria. She was saying, "Well, go paper plates for everyone. Like, come pick up a plate, you know, pass it out or whatever." That's real good too. But it depends, I think, on the size. I've talked to a friend who is going to have about 6 people over, and she has the tables all spread out. And instead of having serving trays, they'll have one person putting plates like they're, you know, into the to-go plates and doing stuff like that. So me, I don't plan to really be because of the this and not being able to go around family. So I love to fish. I love to camp. So my husband and I just plan on going up to Clear Lake in a room and have uh, a room we can see if we're fishing. We can see the poles from the room and have Thanksgiving up there, and still social distance if friends. We have a couple of friends that live there. If they come over, you know, mass, they're older than us, so we'll be very careful. But these are the times that we have to make um, changes, and we have to be really, really thoughtful and compassionate to each other, because none of us know what to do here. We're all winging it. And we have to understand if someone says you can't come, or I don't want you to come, or maybe not, they don't even say it like that, but you know, it might not be a good idea that you do, accept it. And I pray that, you know, other people who get it from us will accept it if it comes down to that. So
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, creating new traditions, it sounds like as well that you would do. And I'm looking at some of the chat box, and it looks like in Chinese tradition, the rain actually means rich and lucky. And so for some people who plan this could be a really welcome thing as well. And then Catherine, I love that you brought up the camping. Other people are just gonna be like, okay, everyone wear your rain gear, and it's just gonna be really wet, and we're gonna, you know, like post up some tents and have each family in a tent, right? Have that plan B coming along. And this is, I think, Catherine, you had said this really well, which is everyone's just doing the best they can and we're winging it. And as much compassion and patience and understanding, like that generosity of spirit that Alicia talked about in the beginning, just to have with each other and to know your boundaries and to stick with your boundaries and to do what feels safe to you. It's really a way to kind of get through this time. All right, John, let's go on to the next slide, please. And so I'll answer some of the things about the next trainings. We'll talk about that towards the end. But in the beginning, you talked about your favorite holiday tradition. We heard from Alicia, who talked about her Italian family. Catherine, you told us about the smell of pine cones and the feeling of love and all the different colors. And we're gonna have you, Yadiel, if you wouldn't mind putting back into the chat box the Google Doc with the instructions. We're going to put you into breakout rooms. There's only a handful of you at this point. So let's just maybe do about 10 minutes or so, not even in breakout rooms. Each of you will have 3 minutes to share. Just think of for a moment, spend a minute or so just thinking about how you're going to COVIDize. I wrote 2020 proof, your favorite holiday tradition. So if your favorite holiday tradition was singing songs around a piano with your family and people can't be together in that way this year, what can you do that you feel that feeling you get from that holiday tradition, but keep it so that you're comfortable and everyone's safe for this time? So I'll give you all about a minute or so to think of that on your own. And then in small breakout rooms, you guys can kind of share what you came up with and use each other to bounce ideas off each other as well. So maybe we have our own little tunnel visions. So help in your small breakout rooms, you can have people share maybe their perspective or give you some insight that you haven't thought about yet. Take this moment to write those things down. And in about 1 minute, we'll do breakout rooms. All right, Yadiel, why don't you put them into breakout rooms and we'll have them come back in about 9 minutes or so. I think that should be fine. All right, everybody, welcome back, welcome back. So any new ideas? What came up for you as you brainstormed the 2020 version of the holiday season?
I want Sequita, if she doesn't mind, to share. She gave us something so awesome. I don't want to put you on the spot, Sequita. If you don't want to share, that's fine. If you don't mind me.
Well, thanks, Catherine. I can always count on you.
I know, girl. By the way, you guys, we're co-workers.
Yeah. Okay, so what I shared was that in the past, we would always hi, okay, scoot over. In the past, we would kind of get together, obviously for Thanksgiving with family, and kind of make your rounds to everyone's houses and grabs like your favorite meals to take it home. And but since we can't do that, I have been learning how to create my own new traditions in my home. I have my own place with my 3-year-old now, and so we're learning how to create Thanksgiving for what we do in our home. And so I'm used to doing things how like my mom did it and stuff, but like now we have to establish how we do it in our home. So that's what we're doing. And then another thing that I shared was that for Christmas, we typically would do a Christmas breakfast, and it's been going on for a long, long, long time, but we can't. So my cousins and I decided to get together some of the family, because we saw an advertisement about renting the movie theater out for $100, and you can rent out the theater and they select certain movies for you to watch, and you get your small group of 25, no more than 25. And so we have done that. And so we're going to do that next month. That's our highlight this year. And we are going to matching Christmas pajamas. And we're going to kind of just do that. They are offering like snacks and stuff too there. So we get to still get the opportunity to eat popcorn and things like that too. So that's what I'm looking forward to doing this year.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing that 25 people could have their own movie theater for less than it would cost you to go to the movies? Like, it is like, whew, whole other conversation.
Yeah, like they really like lowered that. Like that's a steal. That it's really a steal, because like just for $100 for 25 people, like you would never get that for 25 people, just because alone it's $16 for a kid, and then it's $20 to eat. So it's a lot. So right now, I thought it was a great idea. So I'm happy that we came up with that idea, because I mean, it's something fun, and it's still it could still be some sort of tradition going forward too, but yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Jadon, would you move on to the next slide? Because it is 11:30 and we want to make sure that we all respect your time. So in this last, so if there's any other new traditions or 2020 proof traditions that you want to share, please do put them in the chat box. We'd love to hear them. And just, this is a resource that you'll also see on the sheet that we provided you from the Mayo Clinic. But just thinking about how to really kind of make this a much more holistic holiday season, just to minimize all emotional and physical contributions to a lack of safety, really proofing your holiday traditions so they're modified for this year, being sure to check on people who are isolated during this time. Someone talked earlier about a bubble bath with lots of candles, and doing whatever it is that makes you feel relaxed and safe and rejuvenated. And very importantly, making sure that you reach out to professional help. We know that for a lot of, no matter what, the holiday season can be a really challenging time for people. This holiday season is, for many of us, going to be harder than we ever could have imagined in this sense. Also, for some people, it's going to be a huge relief because they don't have to see family and friends. So just acknowledging and recognizing the real scope of emotions for people, and know that there is professional help that's available. Now there's apps and all these things that you can do. Look into your health insurance plan, see what's available, and definitely seek professional help if needed. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And in the resource sheet, just to mention that these are actually not from a particular sheet. These are things that I just wanted to leave you all with, but I think it's really just important to do what feels right for you during the season. And I wanted to also just say thank you all for all of the sharing that you all did in your small groups and large groups. We hope this was helpful for you, and we will be having another one coming up soon. So I think Yadiel is going to share the link to where you can find more information on that. If you want to forward that to your coworkers and colleagues, If you found this helpful, that would be really great. You're also going to get an evaluation, which we would love for you to be able to fill out and tell us anything that you want, give us some feedback. Of course, this is the first time we're doing it. So any feedback that you have is really great, and we will be doing another one. So we'd love to incorporate that into the next session. Thank you all for your participation again. And Janet, any last things you want to say before we let people go?
Just thank you for coming. Thank you for being part of our guinea pig little group. We'd love to hear your feedback, as Jadon said, so we can kind of make it even better for the next session. Just giving just a lot of warmth for everybody during this time, and just acknowledging wherever you're at is where you're at, and giving yourself space for that. So thank you. And I could stay for a few minutes. I don't know about you, Jadon, if anyone wants to kind of share anything or talk with us. I have a couple minutes. Jadon shook her head too. So we're here to more or bounce ideas, whatever you need.
And just to put it out there, like a couple people ask in chat if they can use these resources with other groups, or, you know, especially the holiday coping sheet. Please feel free to use that with any group that you think would be helpful, whether that be a work group or your family or friends, clients. Because I think sometimes, you know, I mean, this is for our professional development, but our clients are also going through it too during the holiday season, and it can be up and down. There can be a lot of triggers for everyone. And so talking with them about what their plan is and how we're working with them through that plan, what their goals are for remaining healthy during this holiday season can be really helpful. So feel free to use any of those questions and any of the resources on the sheet.